So your axis of symmetry is what? X equals. Please don't forget the x equals. I hate having to take a half a point off because you left that off, but -1 is not a line, okay? X equals -1 is a line. So it's x equals -1. This number is where we get our axis of symmetry, right? That -1. It's always your x equals h is how we set it up in the notes. Okay, so if x equals -1, that's our dotted line. How do you find the y-intercept in this problem? When it's in vertex form, how do you find a y-intercept?
Do you put the slope and see when it overlaps the y?
Okay, so that works on this one. It doesn't work on everyone because if my axis of symmetry was here, let's say, your slope only gets you one move, right? So if my axis of symmetry, let's say my vertex was here, down 3/1 wouldn't get me a y-intercept right now. So on this one, yes, you can absolutely do that. Just make sure you don't make that the rule for every single one, okay? So what he's saying is you could take your -3 and go down 3 to the right one and down 3 to the left one then, and that will give us 2 more points on our graph, which makes our y-intercept what? 0, 1, okay? Now, that's one way that doesn't always work. What's the way that always works? Plug in 0, right? So you can always find your y-intercept if you plug in 0 for x. Okay, when you do that, it would be -3 times 0 plus 1 squared plus 4. So that's -3 times 1 plus 4 is a positive 1, which is why we get a positive 1 right there. Okay, and then you always just reflect it. So if this is my y-intercept, then the reflection of that point would be just on the other side of my axis of symmetry. So this is your graph. 3 points is fine. If I asked you to find another point, what number would you plug in?
1.
1 would be a great number to plug in because you have numbers at -1 and 0, so plug in 1 at 1 and you would get another point. What's your maximum value?
4.
The maximum is 4. It's always this number, right? So you have a 4 here, it will get you a 4 here, and it will get you a 4 down here, right? That number should be the same on all 3 of those. Vertex, maximum, and range all have the same y value, okay? What is your domain? All real numbers. So your range is y is, we know this is a 4. Is it going to be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to? Less than. When it opens down, right, our numbers are going to be going down, so they'll be less than or equal to. Any questions on that format? So that's when it's in vertex form. This is vertex form. The other thing I want to point out is later in the quiz/test, you're going to be asked to put things into vertex form. Even if you don't remember the basic format, you have it right here, right? Don't forget that little squared. The squared always gets left off, and that messes everything up. So keep that squared guy. Okay, this one's standard form. How do you find your axis of symmetry in standard form? You need to have this memorized. -b over 2a. So your axis of symmetry will be x equals -b over 2a. Okay, what's a -b right now? -4. This is a, this is b, this is c. So x equals a -4 over 2 times what? 2. Okay, so you get x equals -4 over 4 is -1. So axis of symmetry is x equals -1, which is right here. So how do you find your vertex?
It's -1.
-1. Okay, so you always take that same x value and you use it for your vertex. -1 something. How do you find the something? Plug it in. So this is going to be 2 times -1 squared plus 4 times -1 minus 3. So we're just plugging it into our original equation. So 2 times 1 is 2, minus 4, minus 3. What's 2 minus 4 minus 3? -5.
So you just plug in the,
You plug in what you found for your axis of symmetry. Because your vertex is always on the axis of symmetry, right? So we want that -1 to stick around. Okay, so my vertex, -1, -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, puts me here. How do you find a y-intercept in standard form? You've got 3 options this time. Anyone know the quickest option?
Just look at the C.
Look at the C value, right? It's always going to be 0C when it's in standard form. So your y-intercept should be 0, -3. What if you forget that it's 0C? Plug in 0. That's option number 2. And this one again has option number 3. What's the other thing you could do? You could use your slope, right? Your A value acts as a slope 1 time. So you could go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. All 3 of those right now are going to get you right here, 0, -3. So take your pick on that. I say just look at your C value and plug that in, but you can always plug in 0. If you're looking for the safest option on all of them, if you're finding a y-intercept, plug in 0. That's your safe bet, okay? Because then you won't mix it up with the other one. How do I get my third point? Reflect it. So we went 1 to the right of our axis of symmetry. Just go 1 to the left, and that will look like this. Okay, what is your minimum value? -5. It's always your vertex value. Your domain is always all real numbers because you can plug anything you want in for x. And then your range, y is greater than or equal to that minimum value. So again, take note here, vertex, minimum or maximum, and range should all be the same value every time. Okay, vertex, minimum, and range. Questions on that? Okay. The next one. So this one says find the vertex, and then we're going to rewrite it in vertex form. How do you find a vertex from standard form? Yeah, it's what we just did, right? We were in standard form, and we found the vertex. So you need to start with your axis of symmetry, essentially. So we're going to say x equals -b over 2a. What's a -b right now? -12 over 2 times 3. So this is a, this is b, that's c. So we get x equals -12 over 6 is a -2. Okay. That's your x value of your vertex. So we know we're going to have a -2 something for our vertex. How do you find the other value? How do you find the y value? You're going to plug in that -2. So y equals 3 times -2 squared plus 12 times -2 minus 1. And I'll tell you right now, a lot of people on the quiz just did the math wrong here. So just slow down or plug it into your calculator. You're welcome to just plug it into your calculator. -2 squared is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So it's 12 minus 24 minus 1. I think on the quiz it came out to -14, and a lot of people told me -16 because of this -1 at the end. They just went the wrong way with it. I don't know why that happens, but sometimes mental math gets kind of screwball in your head. So just take your time. I know you know it. 12 minus 24 is a negative 12. What's negative 12 minus 1? Negative 13. Okay. Okay, so then it says to rewrite it in vertex form. And I just want to show you what vertex form looks like here. Vertex form is this: y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And when something is in vertex form, you should have this as a number, this as a number, and this as a number. Okay, make sure all three of those variables get replaced. X and y stay put. So can you tell me what h and k are right now? That's the negative 2 and 13. It's your vertex, right? H and k, vertex form. What's a? You already know it from the first equation, right? A is right here. So just because it's in a different form doesn't mean that a changes. What is a in one is a in the other as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to drop in a 3 here, the negative 2, oops, I overshot that, and the negative 13. So it's going to be y equals 3 for your a value, and then x minus a negative 2, so x plus 2 squared, and then plus a negative 13 would just be minus 13. And then we're in vertex form. Okay, number 4, the most common mistakes I saw on this quiz was people mixed up the vertex and the point. Everybody say, good luck, Isabella. She's going to go compete for the wild card. Okay, so this is going to be vertex is your HK, not XY, okay? And then the point is your XY. And this is the one that I told you I'll give you partial credit if you set it up right, but without the A value, because at least you're moving in the right direction. So if we set this up in vertex form, it would be y equals, we're eventually going to solve for A, but this is going to be x minus a negative 3, so x plus 3, and then a lot of people forgot that guy, that little squared. Please don't forget him. So x plus 3 squared, and then what? Minus 2, okay? So this is your final answer once we replace A. How do we find A?
Plug everything in.
You're going to plug in the x and the y, right? So we already have our h and k plugged in. So it's going to be y, which is 4, equals A times x, which is negative 2, plus 3 squared, minus 2. So negative 2 plus 3, that's 1. 1 squared is 1. So normally we would write 1a minus 2 equals 4. You don't really need the 1 there, so if you want to ditch that one, that's fine. But if it's a 2, put it in front of the a. If it's a 4, put it in front of the a, okay? So we add 2, and we get that a is 6. So what is our answer?
Y equals 6, and then in parentheses, x plus 3 squared minus 2.
Right. Okay, so we take that 6, we drop it in here, and that's our final answer. So 6 times x plus 3 squared minus 2. Questions on that? Is it warm in here? I'm warm. Okay, this next one is exactly the quiz question. I didn't change it. My apologies, but I figure most people don't just memorize answers, so we should be okay. So for this one, you're given an equation. Okay, it says where x is the distance from the golfer in feet, and h is the height of the golf ball in feet. What's the distance to reach its maximum height? And what is the maximum height? Whenever they ask you for a maximum or a minimum, think about this, okay? That's not what I want. Here's our golfer friend. And he swings his golf club. That doesn't look like a golf club. That's his golf club. He's going to swing it. Should we do a driver? It's a driver. So he swings his golf club and hits the ball, and the ball's going to go like this, right? So the ball's a parabola. So if we're looking for a maximum, what are we finding? What do we call this point? The vertex, right? You're just finding a vertex. So don't let words freak you out. A maximum or a minimum is a vertex, okay? So let's find a vertex. Distance is the x, okay? So how do we find x when we're looking for a vertex? Negative b over 2a. So a negative b is negative 1.22 over 2 times your a value, negative 0.01. What's super important on this problem? Parentheses, right? If we don't put these parentheses in, we've got problems. Technically, you don't even need the ones at the end, but you're welcome to put them in if you want. So when you plug this in, negative 1.22 divided by parentheses to parentheses negative 0.01, you get 61 feet. Okay, so the distance from the golfer is 61 feet. Then it says, what's the maximum height? That's your y value, right? How high up did you go? So now to find your y value, which is really your h value, you do what? Plug it in. And I'm not even going to do this part, but you would plug in 61 for both of those x's. Does anyone have that plugged into their calculator? I don't remember what the answer is. I feel like it's 30 what? 38. Yeah. 37.21. Okay. Okay. Last thing, this is the calculator. So go ahead and get your graphing calculator out, and I want you just to walk through it one time just to refresh your memory. I will walk through it up here. All right, the process. What do? Clear out your y equals. Most likely you don't have anything there because you cleared it out from the last one and we're not storing a regression equation anymore. So you should be good here. Then you can go to stat. Oh, and make sure your plots are on, right? You need this black box. If you don't have a black box right here, something's wrong, okay? Turn it back on if it went off. All right, so then you go stat and edit. And then if you have lists there, you clear them out. I'm not going to because mine are this problem already, but clear them out. You go up, clear, enter, over to L1, up, clear, enter, okay? And then put your numbers in. So I will read you your lists if you would like. L1 is 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. Okay, then you move over to L2. And then L2 is 115, 186, 238, 246, 149, and 0. And just a heads up, this one didn't work out well. I think I changed a number and it didn't make sense. And so this one works out funny. But the process is right and the one on the test will be just fine. So this is your setup. How do you graph this? Zoom 9, okay? And that should be your next move right now. Zoom 9, and you're gonna graph it. So you're gonna get a window. And then you're gonna plot those points. Technically, there's this in your window. So you have a point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, you do need to label your mins and maxes. How do you find those? How do you find your X values and your Y values for your window? Window. So your X, remember this is your X's, this is your Y. Some of you switched that on the quiz. So this is a negative 0.7 to 7.7. And then this is a negative 41.82 to 287.82. Okay. Do you know what those numbers mean? Why are they giving you those numbers?
Gotta have it.
They're just telling you what makes sense in your setup, right? If you look at your list of numbers, okay, your X value, this is your X value, L1, went from 0 to 7. So they go just below 0 and just above 7, right? It's like a range they're giving you. This one went as low as 0, but as high as 238. So they went below 0 and above 238 to give you the full graph, okay? Okay, then it says, what is the quadratic model? What do you do? Stat, calculate, yes. So stat, arrow over to calculate, and then which one? 5, quadratic, okay? And then enter, 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 enter. You don't need to store a thing. Just take this, okay? It doesn't say where to round, so we're just gonna go 2 decimal places on this one. Your format is that very top, right? ax squared plus bx plus c. So we're doing y equals negative 14.25 x squared plus 81.27 times x plus 120.86. Okay, so that's your quadratic model. Then it says, what is the maximum height of the soccer ball? And at what time does it reach that height? So the maximum height, is that your X or your Y?
Y.
It's your Y. If you're looking at your list, time is T in seconds, that's the X's. H is your height in feet, that's your Y's. Okay, so pay attention to what you're finding there. So really you're answering the second question first. At what time is going to be your X value? So for the time, we're going to say X equals, and what do we do?
Plug it in.
Plug what in?
X max.
Not the X max.
Oh, you gotta.
You're finding a vertex, right? We're finding a maximum. What?
Negative B over 2A.
Negative b over 2a, right? You're going to plug in negative b over 2a. So that's negative 81.27 over 2 times negative 14.25. Don't forget that parenthesis. And here's where I think things go a little awry on our numbers. Where is my calculator? It's hiding. Let's see. Negative 81.27 divided by. So we're rounding a bit here. 2.85, okay? So we're saying at 2.85 seconds, which if you look at your data here, let's look at it here. Okay, 2.85 seconds is here. So 238 to 246, they're saying somewhere in between there is where we hit our peak, which is not technically true when you see what we plug in here, but it's because we're rounding a bunch of stuff. So this is your x at this many seconds. How do you figure out the height for this problem? Plug it in. So we're going to take this and we're going to plug it in here and we're going to plug it in here. So you're going to go negative 14.25 times 2.85 squared plus 81.27 times 2.85 plus 120.86, and you get, here's where it's wrong, but this is how it worked out because of the numbers I gave you. I gave you bad numbers, okay? So this is saying your maximum height is 236. Do you understand why that's a bad problem?
Yeah.
Because you went higher than that right here, right? And right here. But it will work out on the test. This is just bad numbers. Any questions on that? Okay, so if you can do this worksheet,